Analogy: a father sent his only son on an assignment, but grieved when he was about to go. Similarly, having been eager to produce a son, it is unreasonable to grieve at death, the outcome of having been born. Objection: although he showed his enthusiasm to go, great attachment to one son causes one to grieve. Answer: attachment is not appropriate. A son does not love his father as much as a father loves his son. Ordinary people feel attracted to the young, like their children, but the young do not feel as attracted to their elders. Hence those such as one's son, whose upbringing has entailed hundreds of hardships, because of their weak sense of gratitude will reject their father and so forth in an instant. One's actions precipitate one downwards like that attraction, since a mind directed by attachment runs downhill like water. Therefore most people in the world go down to the hells and so forth. Thus, no need to mention liberation, even a high rebirth is hard to find, so willingly respect your elders.
It is like the asafoetida and the sound of a bell, which are gradually used up and dissipate. Similarly, lack of gratitude for what has been done destroys one's practices, making even a high rebirth hard to find. Taking a small amount of asafoetida at a time from the trader's source, it was used up little by little until all of it had been dissipated. The sound of a bell gradually dies away. Similarly, ingratitude and other kinds of bad behavior gradually destroy one's practices. Moreover, attachment to an obedient or disobedient son, whichever, is inadmissible. No one will call a son who disobeys his father lovable. Objection: but one is attached to an obedient one. Answer: in that case the attachment is nothing but a business transaction and is not due to your son. It is like the following analogy: a king had a very beloved son who died. His ministers informed him that his son had rebelled, which upset the king, and he made plans to kill his son. They then told him that he had died. The king was pleased, and beat a great drum for joy. Likewise, obedience appeals to the worldly, its opposite does not.
Objection: a father's attachment to his son is steadfast, irrespective of whether he is obedient or disobedient. Answer: attachment is not steadfast. The suffering caused by separation from the object of one's attachment, such as one's son, is quickly gone from human hearts and does not last long. If the bonds of attachment did not loosen, the suffering it causes would not stop, but by seeing the suffering its effect end, consider the instability of attachment too, which is indicated by this. It is like the following analogy: a king was crossing the water when a non-human spirit captured his boat. One of his ministers, entrusting his children to the king's care, jumped into the water shouting, "Take me and let the king go." The boat was released. When the children heard of their father's death, they suffered, but because the king cared for them well, they came to regard their father's death as an advantage. As in this case, even grief does not last forever.
Objection: though it is inappropriate to grieve in one's heart for a dead son and others, for the sake of convention one must beat one's breast and so forth. Answer: that is not appropriate. Knowing it is of no benefit whatever, still you have injured your body by tearing your hair and so forth. If you injure yourself hypocritically, it is merely in keeping with deceitful people's ways and therefore improper of you. It is like one woman who promised to teach another woman how to commit suicide and, proud of being the teacher, killed herself. Objection: though self-torment is of no benefit, nevertheless it cannot be dispensed with if one is to have a relationship with the surviving relatives. Answer: through the force of their actions ordinary beings become men and women and continue to wander, full, as it were, of suffering. Why fill with more fresh suffering beings who already suffer of their own accord? It is like rubbing salt into a wound. Since there is not the slightest use in having relationships with them, put effort into the means of freeing yourself from cyclic existence. It is like the following analogy: there were two brothers whose father had died in the presence of one and whose mother had died in the presence of the other. When they met they made each other miserable, which was not of the slightest use.
Objection: though parting causes suffering, being with one's family causes happiness. Therefore attachment is reasonable. Answer: It is not. If meeting is a source of joy to you, why would it not be appropriate for you to consider parting also as a source of joy? It should be, for do not meeting and parting both seem to go together? They only ever go together. Understand that it is like the following analogies: Mistress Black Nose follows Lady Luck. Though poisonous food may bring a little pleasure, in the end it produces suffering. A man went to propitiate his tutelary deity and prayed for good luck. He received a promise. That night Lady Luck, followed by Mistress Black Nose, entered his home. The man asked Lady Luck, "Who is this?" She replied that it was Mistress Black Nose. He protested that he had received no promise regarding her. Lady Luck answered, "Wherever I am, she inevitably is too." Similarly, wherever there is meeting, there is also parting. Anyone who eats poisonous food will undoubtedly die or experience mortal suffering. Similarly, all the pleasures of meeting are connected with the suffering of parting.
Objection: the suffering of separation can be discounted, for though an eventual parting is certain, the time spent as friends is long. Answer: the periods of separation are not short, nor are those of being together long. When beings in cyclic existence have a beginningless past and an endless future, why do you notice the very short periods of being together but do not notice the separations, although they are long? Why are you not depressed by them? Whoever is attached to such brief periods of being together should be depressed by the long separations. Someone who had been living abroad, and whose wife had become another man's partner, began to suffer as soon as he reached home. It is just as unreasonable when ordinary people who do not grieve over lengthy separations grieve over brief ones. A man who had gone to another country and lived abroad left behind a wife who became another man's partner. When the man came back, he heard about it from people living near his village, but nevertheless went to the seducer's house. He suffered from the pangs of separation that arose then and there, though he had not suffered because of the preceding separation. He even got involved in a dispute about it.
Objection: those separations are long, the suffering of separation vanishes when the mind is distracted by the marvels of the different seasons, such as the flowers blooming in spring and the bright autumn moon. Answer: since time, consisting of instants, moments, brief spans and so forth which gradually add up, consumes the moments of your life, it is certainly like an enemy which robs you of life. For that reason do not be attached to that which is your enemy. An old servant, made to suffer continually by her mistress, was attached to her and did not complain. Ordinary people who are attached to the different seasons in spite of the heat, cold and so forth are just like this.
Objection: though what has been said is reasonable, separating from one's family is hard, and fearing that, one cannot go off to the forest. Answer: fool, if you do not definitely leave family life behind to live in seclusion because of your fear of separation from family and friends, the Lord of Death will certainly separate you from your family and friends. Therefore who that is wise about what must be adopted and discarded does what must be done in any case because of being forced.